Hello and welcome to the Mentorship podcast, your pocket guide to mindset, motivation and mentorship.
So we've got Mike Warren today.
Yes.
He is from the Apex organisation based down in Brighton. Really excited to have Mike on today. He's absolutely flying at the moment, and a guy that every meeting we go to, this guy's content, his value he creates is incredible. And actually a lot of the people that he's coached and developed also come to our meetings and have that kind of same style and that same presence. So I think it's going to be really interesting today.
Absolutely. I think often when he speaks at these meetings, I've got so many notes. So again, I can't write more with doing the podcast, but I'll re-listen back and have loads.
Absolutely.
Hi, Nina here. Quick disclaimer, apology. I've got a terrible cold for a few of these episodes, so if you hear me coughing, spluttering and interrupting guests with their answers, I'm sorry. Enjoy the show. Mike, welcome to Bristol and the Mentorship podcast. Thanks for coming down.
No, thank you so much for the invitation. Looking forward to it.
Oh, pleasure. So, Mike, you have been in direct sales for how many years now?
Coming up to 12.
12, nice. Same actually, yeah. So I was actually trying to think when I first met you myself, because I think I was coming down to Brighton to learn from some of the team builders there, as you were one of. And it was the day before the person that had been running that location before was about to go to America. So it was quite an exciting day for you.
Yeah, really exciting, yeah. Thrown in the deep end, for sure.
How many years had you been doing it until that point?
It was about 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah, not quite 2 years, so
yeah,
very early.
So sink or swim kind of thing. You'll be fine, go for it.
Yeah, 100%. I think force you to kind of grow up a bit quicker.
Yeah.
Not having your direct mentor around at the time, but also kind of focused my attention, I suppose, taking the opportunity and always looking forward with it rather than kind of the downsides, looking at the opportunity.
So I don't actually know how you got into it. So can you go back from right before then? What
So as you say, I'm from Brighton, or around Brighton originally, and started in an office in Brighton during summer of university. So I did 2 years at university. And
what were you studying?
I was doing business and was a bit of a reluctant student.
Okay.
Kind of really felt like I had to motivate myself to kind of attend lectures and do all the work that's required.
Rob can relate.
Yeah, we've all been there. And joined the office initially just to get some summer work, and really just was taken back by the caliber of people that were around and the skills that I felt like I was going to learn through being there. I always looked at my career as requiring good communication skills and sales skills.
Yeah. And
at the very least, I was going to achieve that. 2-3 months into working in the office and seeing the success and, seeing the kind of stories of the people that had come through the business, really looked at my situation and felt that actually would a kind of career in the industry be more suited to what I was trying to achieve in my life, and made the decision a bit loosely initially, but was really just felt like I was in the right place, and all of my goals that I wanted to achieve were going to be attainable in the industry. So
had you kind of gone to uni with the thought process that it was what you should do? Did you know what you wanted to do with that degree at that time?
Retrospectively, I still think I'd have gone to university. I don't think I necessarily took the degree that I would have taken today. Right. But yeah, I think so. Kind of being, going through college, going through secondary school, etc. It was just the natural progression. Most of my friends were going to university and, not really knowing what career path I wanted to take, and that was what I meant by being a bit of a reluctant student, kind of feeling like I was in the right place, but not really being passionate about it. That's kind of what I felt I lacked.
I suppose doing it at degree level, you don't get loads of the practical experience. It's more the theory and... Well, I've not done a business degree. I don't know exactly what's in the syllabus. But.
Yeah, 100%. And, my experience through my kind of career so far has been, your people skills are probably paramount. If you're able to deal with people correctly and professionally, that's really at the center of doing things correctly in business, having that ability to deal with people.
Cool. So 18 months after.
Yeah.
I suppose you kind of get to a situation where you're, like you said, thrown into the deep end, and then fast forward another decade, and you've got now an organisation, so the Apex organisation.
Yep.
So I'm losing track just because you guys are growing so fast, but how many different kind of independent offices do you have as part of that group?
So we've 12 offices at the moment.
One for every year?
One for every year, nearly, yeah. And continuing to grow. I think that for me, it's more exciting now to think about where we'll be in 12, 18 months, And, it's the rate in which I'm meeting people in the organisation that have the enthusiasm and the willingness to kind of progress. That's the thing that really excites me, yeah.
And can I go back to when you first joined? You were a student, started in summer just to make some money, I presume. And you said that you kind of made that decision to finish university and kind of stick with that industry, because you said, this place here, I'm going to learn the skills that I want to learn, or learn the skills that I need to learn. What were those skills that you saw?
Look, I was really fortunate. The person that was running the office at the time, really gave me a lot of confidence in my own ability and gave me a bit of a blueprint for, what it would take to do well in the industry. And I think for me, it was the simplicity of the business that really attracted me. I look at so many businesses, and, I've got family members that have companies, and the amount of variables and the amount of things that you need to be conscious of in order to run a successful business, is pretty mind-blowing and pretty impressive. Not to underplay what we do, but actually it's a relatively simple business model, and it really allows you to focus on, the amount of effort you put into the business and, your enthusiasm towards growing it. So I think that's kind of, particularly being a young person, I didn't look at it as a huge risk, and I think that's the thing that often puts people off, going on to run a business, is they just assume there's this huge risk. And the simplicity of it really kind of made me feel quite confident and quite comfortable with it.
You're quite a logical person.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Because you joined the industry quite young. Because I remember it would have been 12 years ago.
Yep.
I met you for the first time on a golf course in Tenerife, that we'd been invited to this trip. And that's when I met you for the first time. And how old would you have been then?
I'd have been 21 then, yeah.
Brilliant. And I think for the average person, the idea of starting in the industry and looking to build your own business and run your own company can be a pretty daunting one, right?
Yeah. Oh, 1,000,000%. And I always kind of think about, being young in business as just the most incredible opportunity. If you think about, I always have felt my life was going to become more complicated over time, and I was going to have less flexibility. So actually, being young in business kind of meant that I had no responsibilities and I could kind of apply myself to it.
And no bad habits.
Yeah, no bad habits. And, as I say, I was very fortunate to be surrounded by people that could help me. The way I've always tried to describe running your own business is, how many people are kind of scared of getting on an aeroplane. And, people are always really comfortable being passengers in cars. But statistically, you're much safer, getting on an aeroplane than you are getting in a car. Yeah. And I have kind of had that same view on working for myself versus working for someone else. There's almost a bit of a assumption that if you work for someone else, your career's safer, your opportunities, safer. I've always had the opposite view. I've always liked to be kind of a master of my own destiny.
In control.
Yeah, 100%.
So that leads us really well into our 3 M's, right? So mindset, motivation, and mentorship. So your mindset towards what you do, and even your mindset when you first started, sounds like you knew what you wanted to do. You found an environment that you liked being in. But a lot of people don't often have that kind of mindset or have their why yet. So what kind of advice could you give maybe our listeners about mindset and how it's kind of helped you, become the business owner you are today?
I think mindset's probably the most important of everything that you need to do well in business or anything, frankly. For me, I look at mindset as self-esteem. Okay, so I look at it as, what's your opinion of yourself? Okay, and if you have a high opinion of yourself, and if you really, genuinely think that you're able to succeed, or you deserve success, or you believe you're progressing, I think that for me is the most important thing. And the way I describe it to people is, imagine if you had a friend, right? And that friend is always letting you down. They're never kind of doing what they say they're going to do, or, they don't kind of get up on time, or they don't show up, or they don't kind of dress that, professionally. What would your opinion be of that person? It wouldn't be great. And I like to think of myself as, in a strange way, what opinion would I have of myself if I was friends with myself, And I think that it kind of keeps me focused on just making good decisions, just doing the right thing, and building the self-esteem really for me is the thing that is most important part of my mindset.
Yeah. Well, my opinion of you from an outsider is very much that you have a lot of self-confidence. Has there been any points in, your life or just the past 12 years where maybe you have had that imposter syndrome, or your self-confidence hasn't been as good?
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. And I'd say probably most people wouldn't think that. You're saying they're from the outsider looking in. I really try and make an effort for it not to be evident.
Okay.
So if and I'd say this to anybody, if you ever are feeling nervous, or you feel ill prepared, or if you feel out of your depth a little bit, there really isn't any point telling anyone.
Okay.
Like, let other people come up with their opinions of that. And I've always found that more people will actually struggle with this than you think. The idea of feeling out of your depth, or not quite ready, or I would say is pretty natural and not something to be concerned by, and it's not a reason to not do something. But that fear of being inadequate is something you need to overcome if you are going to progress in anything. So 100%. And I'd say the main kind of solution to that for me is just getting out of bed an hour earlier, going to bed an hour later, and just being as prepared as you can be and working as hard as you can.
I was going to ask, what did you do to get through those times? Yeah,
it's just preparation for me. An analogy would be, standing in a queue to go and do your exam at university, and in the back of your head how many hours you've put in.
Yeah.
And when you turn the paper over and the kind of question's something you're not prepared for, you kind of deserve to be in that situation. Yeah. You haven't put the effort in, you haven't done the reps.
It's a running joke in my family, but we say my dad gives a lot of top tips. Mm-hmm. So we actually made him a plaque once of Dad's top 10 top tips, because one of the things he said to me when I was at university, like studying for exams, he was like, well, all you can ask for yourself is if you've prepared enough, you can be happy with whatever the result is. Because if you put the effort in, the work in that you should have done, whatever happens is your fate, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I got the grades I was hoping for, and I kind of thought, okay, well, that's because I put the work in. So yeah, I suppose that thing of you deserve to be where you are right now.
1,000,000%. Yeah. And also just being patient with things. I think the best thing and worst thing about our industry, and I've said this multiple times, is how quickly things can happen for people. And it's the best thing in the world because it creates opportunity very quickly, but it also can breed a bit of frustration in people that don't maybe get ahead quickly. And you mentioned about from the outsider looking in, wouldn't necessarily think someone has had any confidence issues. From the outsider looking in, everyone also assumes everything's been an upward curve.
Absolutely,
for the whole way, and
you feel like you're alone in your challenges.
1,000,000%. And I can pinpoint 2 or 3 periods in my career where things were particularly challenging. I really had to kind of dig deep for the effort, the willpower, the confidence to kind of take the next steps. But I ultimately think they're the most defining moments. It's all very it's all fantastic, when you're getting recognition, or you're on stage, or you're doing well in business, but those aren't the moments that I really recognize or remember. They're just almost the surface level stuff that everyone else sees.
So do you believe that yes, you've had doubts in the past and maybe kind of not always believed that you could do something, But do you believe that because you don't put a lot of focus on it and you almost kind of you listen to it and understand it but put it away, that doesn't kind of become anything bigger?
Kind of. I think I'm always aware of it, and I don't think it's worth ignoring. I think it's worth recognizing. But I've always had this kind of view on things where I'm always comparing myself with my peers. I'm always kind of looking at people around me, and we've been competitive, and it helps us in business, right? Because we're always kind of driving each other. It's positive competitiveness.
Camaraderie,
It's not wanting anyone to do badly. It's just using each other's success to kind of leverage your own focus, I suppose. Also comparing yourself with people that are 10 years down the line, and I think that if you have a balanced view, comparing yourself with people that are maybe not as confident or not as well off or not as focused or aren't doing something they're passionate about, that's really where you end up having a healthy mindset. If you are always just focused on people that are better than you or people that have done better than you, you want to do that, but you want to do it in a balanced way. So I think I'm definitely not trying to ignore it. I also believe it's normal and natural. And again, that's probably the thing that is most important, is people shutting it away or parking it, thinking, I'm just going to ignore it and hope it goes away. You can't kid yourself. You spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week talking to yourself
with
in
your own
head.
company.
Exactly, right. And you want to make sure that those conversations are all going in the right direction.
Great.
I read a book ages ago called The Charisma Myth, and they talked about imposter syndrome as like a whole chapter, I think. And it said that if ever you feel overwhelmed or feel like you're nervous, because I remember whenever I used to go into the sales field, I'd start every day with this thought of, maybe I won't do well today.
Yeah.
It was always on the back of my mind. And it said, just remind yourself that there's probably tens of thousands of people in the same role that you do that probably feel the same way. So whether you're getting up on stage and feeling nervous or, nervous to conduct an interview or do an interview, you're not alone.
And it's also because it matters to you.
Yeah, I cared.
And I don't see what the issue with that is. If I ever woke up and didn't feel nervous about wanting to do something or wanting to help somebody, or that I'd probably be more concerned with that.
Yeah.
If I didn't feel the butterflies. But I heard a really good quote, right, and it's by a famous philosopher called 50 Cent. And 50 Cent said, if you ever have any butterflies, just make sure they're all going in the same direction.
Okay.
And I thought that was quite good, by 50.
What is in the poet? Yeah.
The poet, yeah. The poet.
What did you think? What did you perceive him to mean by that?
Having the butterflies in your stomach, making sure they're all going in the same direction. I like the idea of it kind of having a purpose behind it. There's a reason why you're feeling that way, and as long as you're making it go in a certain direction, then what's wrong with that? It's kind of channeling it to a certain extent. And I don't think you'll ever find anybody in any elite kind of area of any industry that's not getting butterflies.
Yeah. Interestingly, I think physiologically there's not much difference between excitement and nerves. Apparently the things that are going on inside your body are the exact same. Yeah. But it's just how you're perceiving it.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
And it's that for me, labeling it as a negative, is the issue. Is going, this is wrong. It's wrong to feel this way. Okay, why is it wrong to feel that way? It's it's a positive thing, and you don't want to add to it unnecessarily by being ill prepared and by not working hard enough and not doing everything you could do. And there's no one's ever going to be perfect in all of these areas all the time, and that's where you've got to learn the lessons. So passing your exams and getting the grades you want is valuable to you because you've probably had experiences in the past where you didn't get the exams and you didn't put the work in.
Or you get that question, you're like, I did not prepare for that one, like you said.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, Mike, you're really aware of your emotions and your thoughts, but you're also really in control of the way that you direct your mindset and direct your thoughts now. And you go back to kind of planning. You mentioned that a couple of times now. So what kind of things practically do you do to make sure that you are, Mike's head is thinking the right way?
I wouldn't say I journal per se, but I am quite conscious of getting thoughts out of my head and onto a piece of paper. So, I'll, forever write down plans and goals and things that I want to achieve, and make sure that I'm actually deliberately thinking about them, and I'm actually thinking about them in a positive way and coming up with outcomes. And I think that's important with thoughts, because otherwise, you think about anything for long enough, you'll just go round in circles and you won't really get anywhere. So I'd say that's definitely something that helps me. Being early for everything,
Today,
yeah. And, I do think that a lot of the time people don't give themselves enough margin of safety.
Yeah.
I use this analogy of, you're driving in a truck and it weighs 1 ton and the bridge says maximum weight 1 ton. Do you go over the bridge, or do you find a bridge that says
1.5.
maximum weight 2 tons? Right. Yeah. You're probably best going down the road. And a lot of the time it's people not giving themselves enough time, not prioritizing their own personal development, which for me is massive. If you want to have a successful business, think about the person that you need to be in order to run that business. If you look at an athlete, if you need to be fitter and stronger, then you need to put in the effort to become fitter and stronger. It's not going to happen.
Can't just wish it.
You can't wish it. Yeah, you can't make up for that. And that for me has always been important. Being on time, being early, giving myself enough thinking time really has avoided those issues to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
So Mike, leading on from that then, what kind of part does kind of motivation play for you?
So if I think back to when I started my business, I started my business when I was 22, and we already spoke about how that's quite unique for someone to start doing something like that at a young age. I think the main thing that was different with me is I've always been conscious of my life over a 10-year period. So at 22, I was conscious of where I'd be at 32, 42, 52, etc. And motivation for me is just a byproduct of perspective. So if you think about your life over the next 24 hours, the decisions you make, whether they're good or bad, aren't going to necessarily have much of an effect. You're not going to see the benefits of making good decisions, and you're not going to be penalized for making bad ones. But if you look at them as compounding over 10, 20 years, that's when they start to matter to you. And I think motivation is within anybody. Someone that says I lack motivation, I think no, that's probably the symptom of the issue. The issue is actually, do you really think about things in a larger context, or do you just think about day to day, what's going on? And that for me is the bigger issue.
Well, I was going to ask, do you think, because of course you've mentored people and you worked alongside peers, for 12 years in this industry, do you think that sometimes that short-term thinking is what kind of breeds frustration? Because I would say, for me, when I think back, it was because I wanted to be in a certain situation, but right now.
Yeah.
And I was always thinking, I wanted to have a team of this much revenue, or I wanted to be in this situation financially, but wasn't thinking about 10 years down the line. I was thinking about right now.
1,000,000%. And, if you think about things over a longer period, you don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
If you have issues on a particular day, think about it imagine being 10 years older. Are you going to worry about this in 10 years?
Yeah, that's something that someone said to me once, and I was like, oh yeah, you're right. This is not a big deal.
So I think that's that really is important, is being more long-term orientated. And look, it's good to give yourself a bit of pressure and have targets and have short-term targets, because it kind of drives you and it makes you a bit more focused.
Yeah.
But also learning how to be patient is super important.
Yeah.
So Mike 12 years ago building the business versus Mike now, I presume your motivators have changed, right? And your life is going to change dramatically. I know you're into kind of your combat sports and your boxing, and I was listening to something kind of last week, and is Errol Houani talking about Conor McGregor and him not coming back and him not really kind of, not doing much. And he said that it must be very, very difficult to get out of bed early and go to the gym when you're waking up in silk bed sheets. Yeah. So kind of what's changed with Mike that's kind of still getting him out of bed, keeping him focused? What are your motivators now?
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't say my motivation has changed, if I'm being perfectly honest with it. Yeah. And I think that there's a big difference between, when I look at an athlete, or I look at, somebody that's making real sacrifices. We're talking about 0.001% of people. The sacrifices I make and have made in the scheme of things are not really comparable. And I think people often lose, again, bit of perspective. When they go, I worked 8 hours today or 9 hours today. I'm like, go back 50 years, that was probably less than average, So
also chat to someone in the NHS.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, compare it, Conor McGregor is doing something he loves, but he's doing something that every time he does it, he loses a piece of himself, right? He's sacrificing his body and he's kind of taking massive risks physically and mentally. I've definitely not done that. And I think that, when I look at having goals, I've never wanted to be the richest guy in the world. Never had that kind of goal. I think for me, I've always been really, really clear where I want to get to, what I want to achieve. And I think that is something that, if you can get to that stage, is really worth trying to find. I think a lot of people will generally just want more of anything. Whether it's more responsibility, more money. And it's a pretty lazy goal. I think you've got to try and start to get to a point where you can actually distill it down to real specifics. So yeah, I wouldn't say my motivation has changed, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. And the silk pajamas thing, that's a Marvin Hagler quote. He said that back in the day. It's hard to do your hill sprints in your silk pajamas. I'm definitely not wearing silk pajamas, but I don't think I don't look at things in the same way as that. I think they've got a mountain. Those types of people have got a mountain. There's a summit. There's a pinnacle point. For me, I don't really look at it like that. I really enjoy what I do. I still enjoy what I do. It's not too taxing on me physically or mentally. And I can see myself doing it for 20, 30 years. Will I get to a point where I feel like, I don't have the motivation? I'd say the only thing that is always going to disrupt that is a big part of my career is being invested in other people's careers. So it's not a personal journey, It's not, I'm not achieving something. Yeah. I've made commitments to other people that I'm working with. So I suppose it would probably more happen once those people have reached their summit. That's probably where I feel like I'll be, able to sit in my silk pajamas.
To refocus,
Yeah.
Well, on mentorship then, so you're clearly massively focused on supporting others and helping others, and you would have been mentored down the line as well. But what do you, over the last 12 years, what have you realised and what do you believe kind of makes a great mentor?
So if I think of people that have had a positive effect on me, most of it is down to personality. How I have had to change my personality or had to change who I am. And the people that have influenced me the most have had aspects of their personality that I wanted to emulate. I could kind of notice that they had certain strengths or certain things that they were kind of confident with. And I looked at it and said, actually, I know I need to be more like that in order to run a more successful business. And I would say it's probably the same when I look at mentoring others. I do look at it from a personality point of view. I look at people that I work with and go, look, where are they really strong? Where have they naturally got confidence? And where do they fall short? And I do look at everything as an extension of the personality. So my goal, I suppose, with people is to reprogram them, recondition them, get them actually doing those sorts of things correctly. But you're only able to do that with real commitment, and that's ultimately what I'm looking for whenever I work with anybody, is someone that's genuinely serious about what they want to achieve. Yeah. And you see a lot of people that flirt with the idea of doing lots of things. You're never going to achieve anything with someone like that. You need to find people that are really committed to what they're doing. This idea of 10, 20 years, you're not going to do something for 10 or 20 years half-hearted. You're going to need to find someone that is looking for a long-term kind of destination.
I suppose they need to want it for themselves, and you can kind of help guide them rather than
1,000,000%.
You want them to get to that destination.
Yeah, and look, and that can be a massive challenge, right? Because we're all very committed to our own goals, and we almost want people to do well so we can get to the next level, But, it really is a fool's errand to try and get somebody to do something they don't want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, you can only help those that want to be helped, yeah. So you've clearly had mentors along the way, and probably some that stick out more than others. And also I know that you're you already mentioned, very keen on your own personal development. So are there any key bits of advice or information that you've read or listened to that you really kind of like hold close to you still today?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. So on the idea of finding a mentor, my favourite bit of advice was through Ty Lopez, and Ty Lopez said, you shouldn't listen to everybody, you know, and it really is a really important bit of advice. We often find people going, oh, listen to every podcast and chat to this guy and chat to that guy and read this book and read that book. If you listen to everybody, eventually the information's going to start cancelling itself out.
Yeah.
And you're going to go, oh, I don't really know what I should be doing now because this person said this and that person said that, right? So really try and find people that you can learn a lot from, and the idea for me is you want to find a mentor that is, they're never going to be doing exactly the same thing as you, but you want to find mentors that are doing as close to what you're doing as possible,
But further ahead?
Further ahead, yeah. 10 years down the line, and people that you enjoy spending time with.
Yeah.
That old adage of the person that enjoys walking will walk for further than the person that likes the destination. If you're spending time with someone that you genuinely enjoy their company, you're going to find that that's going to make a big difference. And also realize that a lot of the stuff that you'll learn, you won't actually, you didn't intend to learn it, or it wasn't what you're actually looking for. So I found this happen loads of times in my career where I wasn't trying to learn the thing I ended up learning, but it ended up having a massive impact on me. And when you are really committed to what you're trying to achieve, you will find inspiration in just the strangest of things. I remember watching a documentary on a flight, and the documentary was to do with an oil tanker, right?
Okay.
Had absolutely nothing to do with my industry or what I do. But I was like, oh, that's an amazing analogy for what I was trying to kind of talk about in the business at the time. And I think that you will find when you've got real clarity on what you're trying to achieve, information starts to kind of leap off the page sort of thing. So your real goal is to be inspired about what you're doing. And you'll find sources of information in just the strangest places.
Yeah.
So Mike, that leads now on to something that we kind of want to find out about Mike. Some of your secret sauce that kind of maybe you don't tell people normally, but
more 50-cent quotes.
No, I don't have any 50 quotes, but behind the kind of scenes, kind of, what kind of things do you do that people don't normally kind of see that actually makes a big difference in your performance?
I think in our industry, we're in a people business. I think the main thing that no one's ever going to see is your sincerity. And what I mean by that is, you see this on Instagram, you see this on the internet all the time of people wanting to help. All I want to do is help you,
Right.
All I want to do is help you. And then, they're charging you £1,000 for them to help you,
Well, you see the, on social media at the moment, you see people recording themselves giving money or gifts to people who are homeless.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll be really open. I'm not trying to help everyone, I'm not trying to help everybody. I'm trying to help a real specific small group of people that are in the business that I work in, and I want to help those guys, and I want to get them to the next level. I'm not using all of my training programs and selling them, to other businesses. I'm not doing any speaking engagements for other companies. My sole commitment is to a really, really small group of people that I work with. And I think that the thing that no one can see that really, really makes a big difference is being sincere and genuinely wanting to help people. And it's difficult to fake that, like you're going to spend so much time with people, over 2, 3, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
They're going to see the real you, and the real you is going to come up. And, I was with someone last night actually, and they were talking about a family member that had their father was close to the end of their life, and they said, look, you might need to come and see whoever, they're not going to be around for that long. And it was like 9 p.m. on a Friday. And you don't even think about it. If they're important people, you make the journey and you don't even question it. And I think that's what I think you need, what I think really matters is actually having that kind of sincerity to really care about people. And you can't fake it. There will be periods throughout your relationship with the people you work with where you'll need to do stuff you don't want to do, right? There'll be stuff that you really, really don't want to do. And it's your, if you're sincere about actually wanting to help people, there's no decision-making time. It's not a decision you need to make. It's more of an instinctive reaction. You go, of course I'll help that person. Of course I'll make that journey. Of course I'll take that phone call or whatever it might be. So I'd say sincerity from a people business point of view. And, as far as other things that go on that people don't see, I think that's it. I think that if you can really be genuine in what you're trying to help people achieve, I think that's probably the most important thing.
Would you say that one of them might be your student mentality? Because you quote a lot of people, you quite clearly have a lot of self-development, and that's probably not something you do in public, right? Is that something that's kind of really helped you?
Yeah, I definitely share that stuff though. If I ever read or see anything that I think is that's great, I'll share that stuff with other people. I definitely don't personally develop for show, so I'm not doing it to kind of, hope people walk in while I'm reading a book or whatever.
Like an Anchorman where it's like 1201.
Exactly,
Oh, you caught me reading another book.
But I'd say personal development's massive. I think we're very fortunate nowadays with the likes of podcasts like this, or information being easy to get hold of. I think that there's one of the things that's worked quite well for me is I read a lot of book summaries. So you read a 300-page book and you'll put it down and realize there's only kind of 2 or 3 real takeaways. Yeah, so you can kind of get these book summaries now that are 10 pages long. And they actually still condense the information. And that for me has been a really efficient thing to do. But we're very fortunate in our industry that we're all building the same businesses in a similar industry, and there's people ahead of us. So I would say with what we do, there's no need to learn our industry from a book necessarily. You've got active examples of people that you can visit, speak with regularly. But go back to the point I made earlier, which is don't try and learn from everyone. Try and find the 1 or 2 people that when they speak, you really understand what they're saying. And try and learn as much as you can from them.
I was just going to ask on what you were saying about, the genuine care and how you say, well, look, I'm not trying to help everyone. I'm trying to help a certain set of people, because I imagine now with people looking up to you, and I imagine they would look at your career status right now and think, I want to be in that situation. So I imagine you probably do have quite a few people that would like your support and mentorship.
Yeah.
So do you have to make a decision as to who you can put the effort into, or how do you?
No, not at all. I've never not done a call, or never not done a Zoom call, or for anybody that wants to learn from me, they can do. I would say I get a lot less calls and texts than people think.
Oh, really?
And it's always and this was in a Tim Ferriss book, which was 4-Hour Work Week, and he talks about in organizations there's an assumption that further up the organization that person's going to be harder to reach.
Yeah, like unattainable.
Yeah, and because everyone thinks that, you end up not. They end up not
opposite.
Actually. Yeah. Exactly, it's complete opposite.
So we'll put your number at the end of this call.
No, whatever. Yeah. So what we'll find in our industry is actually people that are maybe 6, 12, 18 months into the industry will probably get more demand for their time than people like myself. And I always say this to every meeting I go to is I write my number on the whiteboard. I say, if any of you guys want to chat to me at any point, let me know. Yeah. Drop me a message. And just on that networking point, just a bit of advice is, if you are looking to network with somebody, always message them first. Give them as much information about your situation as possible, right? Because clearly we were all busy, and if you can preempt the situation you're in and give them the information, it means that when you do get on the call, it's relevant, and also you can use the time efficiently. So rather than me spending 5 minutes telling you my situation, you already know my situation by the time we get on the call. And I think that's really important. I find a lot of the time when people are networking, they don't really have a clear objective of what they're trying to get out of the networking call, which is a mistake. And they're also not giving enough information in advance. So I kind of suggest to people that if you want to do a call, here's the best way to get the most out of it. Send me a message with your situation. Give me some of the team results or how you're getting on, strengths and weaknesses. So when we jump on the call, we can actually be a bit more productive.
I completely agree. I mentor one of our guests that was on recently called Mel, and she's in the States in America. And every single week before our call, we have an online spreadsheet that she completes where her business is at, what she wants to kind of ask question-wise. It's a real, quite comprehensive kind of example of what's going on. And then we start that call rather than kind of asking questions, getting straight into the content. So yeah, great advice.
I think I've kind of forgotten what it was like to network for the first time.
It's scary, right?
Yeah, because again, like you were saying about looking at certain people in certain kind of roles or situations, you think, I'm nobody. Why would they want to help me? And also, I had no idea what I needed help with. So people were like, so network. I'm like, about what? I don't know where my skills aren't helping me get to where I want to be. So yeah, that's a great thing, just to be like, well, you don't need to tell me what you want to know. Tell me where you're at. And then you, as an experienced person, could go, okay, well, it sounds like you might not be doing this. That sounds so much more effective.
And in addition to that, our industry is relatively unique where everybody you're networking with at one point was in your situation. So, though you're chatting to somebody that has more experience or, maybe, further along in the industry, at one point they were doing the same thing. So you're never going to have any pushback, or it's definitely never anything to be, apprehensive about. But also realize that you're going to learn some things that you didn't intend to learn. So, and I see this all the time with people when it comes to networking. They go, oh, but I did a call with this person. I didn't learn anything about it. I didn't learn anything from the call. I'm going, well, that doesn't mean that the whole idea of networking isn't valuable. Sometimes you are going to put the phone down and not have had, loads of valuable information. And sometimes you'll get the one piece of advice that actually has, the breakthrough for you. I kind of describe it as it's a little bit like mining. You're kind of mining for information, and sometimes you're going to not get anything valuable, and sometimes you're going to get something massively valuable.
Well, going back to the whole, finding a mentor for yourself, I remember when I was trying to really develop my sales skills, I called probably every single person who was on the list of top performers in our industry, week on, week out. Whoever was number one, I was like, have I spoken to them yet? No. Or if I had, let me revisit that person. And some calls I kind of came off them going, that I know that stuff. Maybe I just need to action it a bit more. But then there were other times where I had real light bulb moments, and I was like, oh, I've never thought about it like that. But I had to go through a few, or kiss a few frogs before.
I think there's sometimes a lot of value in those calls that you don't get an awful lot from, because actually it just builds your confidence.
That you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, if I'm calling someone that's in a high performance, that's performing really, really well, and they've explained what they do, and I don't get a lot from it, then actually kind of gives confidence that maybe I'm on the right track. There might be just a few things I might need to kind of tweak.
Or you're overthinking it maybe.
And look, if you keep hearing the same advice, it kind of tells you that there's no secrets, and I think that's another mistake people make with networking, is they're trying to find secrets to doing well, and they get annoyed with people saying, you just got to keep working hard, and go, oh, well, I think I'm doing that. And it's often you see with people where they go, oh, I thought I was doing that, but retrospectively they now go, actually, I wasn't working as hard as I thought I was. So again, this assumption of, oh, I'm already doing this is actually a mistake a lot of people make, is they almost go, well, I think I'm doing that stuff anyway. Well, if your results aren't
the same,
evidencing it, it's not about what you think, it's about whether you're evidencing it or not.
So the final question we've asked everyone is, I suppose, to do with core values, because I'm sure the Apex organisation, and when you've run your business over the years, you've had a company-wide kind of set of core values. But are there any core values that you personally hold that you think make a difference?
So we've got a tagline that we have for the business, right? And the tagline is investing in people through the power of opportunity. And I read that in an office in America, actually, about 11 years ago. So before I even ran my business. And I think that where that resonated with me is this idea of, providing opportunity and creating opportunity for people. And I think that if there was any kind of core value or something that I still think is important to remind myself 10, 11, 12 years later is, my goal really now is to provide opportunity to other people, and if I can keep making sure that the opportunity they have is almost better than the opportunity I had, they're getting more support, the resources are better, and I definitely think it is. And I think that's actually why I am so excited about the business, is because, every year the team's maturing, I'm learning more about myself, we're gaining more experience. But if you don't kind of focus in on, again, providing the opportunity, it's never going to go anywhere. The reality is that the next 10 years isn't going to be built by me. That's the truth of it. It's going to be built by people within the organization. Clearly, I want to help them and I want to do everything I can to make it happen. But I'm not going to be the person that's going to build the next 3, 4, 5 offices or the next 10, 15 offices. It's going to be other people. So I think a real commitment to that. And that even starts with brand new people. If we have brand new people starting in our office, I have the same enthusiasm today, as I had when I was first building my team. And you mentioned about mentors and things that have always resonated. I know you had Mike Blaine on season 1, and that was always something I learned from Mike. Is I looked at someone that's been doing it for so long, and actually, if I introduce somebody that's brand new in my office to Mike, he has the same enthusiasm towards meeting that person today.
Yeah,
so true.
And I even remember with Mike talking about first impressions. I met Mike at a meeting, and then 3 months later met him again, and he remembered my name.
Yeah.
And I almost...
it's not hard to forget.
Well, I suppose he is also called Mike, yeah. But he remembered other people's names as well.
Yeah.
But I just think that was something that's always kind of resonated with me.
It matters, doesn't it? Yeah.
I've got a similar story, and it's so similar because it's someone at a similar state to where Mike's at, and this is Chris that we all know, and this in America now. And I met Chris in my second month in the industry at a meeting for 5 minutes. I was introduced to him. And 12 months later, I was in an airport in Tenerife. And walking through the airport, I heard Robbie. No one calls me Robbie. And I turned around and I'm pushing my suitcase, and it's Chris, and he remembered my name, and I think that people, that's kind of being genuine and actually really kind of giving a shit about people is kind of the simple things like just knowing their name.
Yeah. And what you said there is exactly right. The mistake people make is they go, I'm not very good at remembering people's names. It's not about trying to remember someone's name. It's about genuinely caring about meeting people, enjoying meeting people. If you do, you will remember their name.
Yeah.
It's not an effort thing.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a really simple way to make someone feel special, for sure.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in, mate.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
And you know what? Your little quote about the man who will walk, he'll go further if he enjoys walking than the man who likes the destination. I heard you say that at our meeting recently, and I have re-quoted that to quite a few people because I'm currently looking for someone to join our team in Cheltenham, and I'm literally thinking, who's going to love the role and doing it? Yeah, because people sometimes talk a good game, but they don't necessarily will do the things to get there. So I'm that's a quote that will probably stay with me for a long time.
Great, glad,
brilliant. Thanks, Mike.
No worries. Thanks a lot.
Wow, that was great, wasn't it, Nina?
Yeah, never before we started did I think he would crowbar a 50 Cent quote in there, but I'm really pleased that he did.
No, I'm not surprised at all.
Oh, really?
He's got some Snoop Dogg ones somewhere, I think. But what's really interesting is, often we have people on the podcast that kind of have achieved great things so far, and they're super confident, and we always think, these people are kind of unbreakable and they've got no doubts in their mind. But it's interesting hearing that actually, he has sometimes got those doubts, or sometimes that imposter syndrome a little bit. So but it's interesting the way that he dealt with it. He did pay attention to it. He didn't kind of hide it, but actually kind of used things like planning to kind of help almost to put it to one side and overcome it.
In fact, he actually revealed in a meeting that I was attending the other day that he considers himself to be an introvert, and I don't think I would have ever put him in that kind of sphere just because of the way he presents himself.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that often people think of the sales and marketing industry, you have to be the charismatic person doing backflips and like super confident.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, if you're not that way, you can still succeed and, you know, work with your strengths, I suppose.
I think he might be slightly critical of himself. I wouldn't say he's an introvert, but
like he said, it doesn't come naturally to him. So he's not the type of person who's at a party, you know, holding the room and hosting it.
I think he's very modest, and actually that came across today when he spoke about kind of, you know, his purpose is not here necessarily just for him, it's to support others and drive growth from others. So I think he's obviously a very modest guy.
Yeah, very. Thank you very much for listening to the Mentorprize podcast. We want to give some recognition to people that have made this happen. We want to thank Luke and the rest of his team at Access Creative College who have given us access to these fantastic facilities, and also to Edward Collis Films for all things to do with videography.